Hello and welcome to this series on graph theory. Before we get started, I want to put out some disclaimers, discuss the objective of this course so that you can understand what you'll get by the time you're done with it. This is going to be a purely or rather mainly a computer science perspective, a computer science take on graph theory, not just a mathematical take. So it'll be very hands-on. That doesn't mean that we won't be mathematical. Yes, we will be doing the math, we'll be looking at proofs, and but at the end of it, it's about coding and getting our solution. Right. So to start with, let us define graph. A graph is a mathematical term for what a common man would understand as a network. So whenever you have entities and their connections, whenever you have something of this sort, any network, these could be computers, these could be locations, roads, traffic, airport connections, all those are graphs. A social network, Facebook, that's a graph. Okay, but apart from these common definitions, every time you take decisions like in what order I have to perform tasks, what all must I complete before I can take on this task, what softwares must I install before I go ahead with installing my current package, all those decisions are actually graph problems. In fact, you'd be surprised to know chess, it can be a graph problem. In this very course we'll be discussing a particular problem which is called the Knight's Tour. That's a graph problem. We'll be looking at the heuristics around the problem as well. So yes, graphs have a wide variety of applications. For the most part, it will allow you to develop a non-linear thinking, a multi-dimensional thought process. The world will never be the same once you start looking at everyday problems as graph problems. So you'll become a better thinker by the end of this course. I guarantee it. Further, this course will really help you crack your coding interviews because most software jobs of the 21st century require you to think in a very creative and in a non-linear fashion. Your Facebook, your Google, Amazon, Netflix, Apple, all these companies, they look for people who are good with graphs because that is directly part of their job description. A Google search engine is a graph problem, right? Facebook, that's a graph problem. Google Maps, graph problem. Making a trade, that's a graph problem. Okay. So to start with, how do you pictorially represent a graph? Pictorially. Whenever you have entities, these entities could be cities, they could be cities, they could be people, they could be any objects, like for example, clothes, they could be stores, anything of the sort. Whenever you have an entity, it is understood as a vertex or a node. And whenever you have a connection, whenever you have a relationship, it could be love, it could be hatred. Whenever you have some sort of a path, you're dealing with an edge, right? So when you have vertices, nodes and edges, nodes plus edges, you have a graph. And that's how we understand graphs, and that's why graphs are depicted pictorially in this fashion. Okay, graphs, networks, nothing but a collection of nodes and edges. All right. So okay, I want to throw these terms out here before we continue because these terms will keep cropping up during our conversations. So 8 terms, let's look at each one of them. First, a graph can either be directed or undirected. Whenever there is a direction to an edge, for example, from 1 to 2, from 2 to 3, this could be a flight connection, this could be some sort of a sender receiver, boss subordinate. So that case you have a direction, so you're dealing with a directed graph or a digraph. Digraph. When there is no such direction, you're dealing with an undirected graph. A classic example, when there is a flight from 1 to 2, when there is a flight from 2 to 3, that's a directed graph. When there is a road from 1 to 2, when there's a road from 2 to 3, when there's a road from 3 to 5, a road from 3 to 5, there is no direction. You can go from 3 to 5, you can go from 5 to 3. So that case, you're dealing with an undirected graph. I hope that distinction is clear. Okay, the second way to look at graphs is weighted versus unweighted. When you have pure relationships, 1 is related to 2, 2 is connected to 3, 3 is connected to 5, you're dealing with unweighted graphs. When you start assigning quantities, for example, the distance between 1 and 2 is 10 kilometer, the distance between 2 and 3 is 15 kilometer, the distance between 1 and 3, that is 8 kilometer, the distance between 3 and 5, that is 12 kilometer. When you start doing this, you're dealing with a weighted graph. Okay. Now, the third sort of distinction is connected versus disconnected. As you can see from the very term, 1, 2, 3, 5, they're all connected with each other. This is what we understand as connected. In fact, they are all part of the same connected component. And as far as disconnection is concerned, 4 is in a separate connected component. From 4 you cannot travel to 1, from 1 you cannot travel to 4. This is what we understand by a disconnected. Okay. Finally, the fourth sort of distinction is cyclic versus acyclic. Cyclic versus acyclic. A cyclic graph is a graph where there is a cycle. For example, 1 to 2, 2 to 3 and 3 to 1. That's a cycle. Suppose there was no edge 1 to 3. Then it becomes acyclic. Why? 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 5. So that is the distinction. So we discuss these terms. They'll keep coming up in our discussions. Let's continue. So great. So far we have been discussing graphs in a very pictorial sort of form. But from a computer science perspective, it makes sense to represent these in a table, in a tabular format or in a linear format, because computer understands data better than a picture. Okay, in fact, every picture is represented in form of data, numbers in a computer science architecture. So now we are going to look at 3 such representations for graphs. And the first amongst them is an adjacency matrix. What is an adjacency matrix? Notice this graph, it has 4 vertices, vertex number 1, 2, 3 and 4. So what we'll do is, for the adjacency matrix, we'll have 4 columns and we'll have 4 rows. Okay, and each connection is described as a connection between a vertex in a row and a vertex in a column. What does that mean? So there is a connection between 1 and 2. So we'll go after the first row, and we will target the second column. So first row, second column, the answer is, we have marked it as 4. 4 is the weight. So we'll assign weight in the first row and the second column in this case. Does that make sense? Similarly, for 2 and 3, the weight is 3. For the second row, for the third column, the weight is 3. For 3 and 2, there is an edge with weight 8. Third row, second column, the weight is 8. Right? So when we are representing things in this form, we understand it as an adjacency matrix. This representation has certain advantages, certain disadvantages. Let us start by looking at the advantages. The first and the most important advantage is, if we want to find out if A is connected to B or not. Is there an edge between A and B? This question can be answered very quickly. Is there an edge between 1 and 4? 1 and 4, there is no edge. 2 and 3, there is an edge with weight 3. 2 and 3, there is an edge with weight 3. 3 and 2, there is an edge with weight 8. 3 and 2, there is an edge with weight 8. Just one lookup. We just have to look up matrix of row, column to get the weight. So easy, so elegant. The second advantage of adjacency matrix, it is quite good for dense network. What is a dense network? When the number of edges are much greater than the vertices. Why is that the case? Because our matrix is very vertex heavy. So if you have 100 vertices, we need 10,000 units of storage space. So we want the edges to be far greater than the number of vertices to use the space efficiently. Now, what are the disadvantages? The first and the biggest disadvantage is it is very navigation unfriendly. Now, I have not covered this concept of navigation. So let me just redefine this particular problem. It is very difficult to find out who are the neighbors of a particular vertex. For example, let us say I have to find out all the neighbors of the vertex 1. From the picture, it is very clear it has only one neighbor. Its neighbor is 2. Let us see how we can derive that information from the adjacency matrix. So we'll go to the first row. The first row. First row, first column, irrelevant. First row, second column. Yes, there is a connection. And the weightage is 4. First row, third column. There is no connection. First row, fourth column, there is no connection. Suppose there were 100,000 vertices. I have to look at 100,000 columns. 100,000 columns before I can answer this question. That is very bad. N checks, order of number of vertices checks to answer a single question. That is the biggest disadvantage. Biggest disadvantage. The second disadvantage is it's very space inefficient. We need n cross n space to represent. Even if there is only one connection, 4 has no connections, but it still requires 4 units of space. 1 has only one connection, but it still requires 4 units of space. Irrespective of the number of connections, every single vertex requires n space. Inefficient. The third problem, which is often ignored, if there are multiple connections between 1 and 4, the connection, there is one connection with weight 10, there's another connection with weight 12, we can't really represent it in this current scheme of things. Maybe we can modify this to represent it somehow, but currently we can't have a representation like 10, 12. If we do that, then it's no longer an adjacency matrix in the conventional sense. So these are the disadvantages. The second such representation, number 2, is an adjacency list. This is the favorite representation because of its unique advantages. Okay, let us first discuss the representation itself. The columns become irrelevant. The representation is in form of a list of vectors. Okay, vector of lists. So for 1, this indicates the adjacency list of vertex 1. So it has one element 2, 4. What that means is from 1 there is a connection to 2 with weightage 4. Let us say there was a connection between 1 and 3 with weightage 5. Then we'll be making another entry here 3, 5. From 1, if there is a connection to 4 with weightage 100, we'll make another entry here 4, 100. That is called an adjacency list form of representation. What are the advantages? The first advantage is that the navigation becomes algorithmically very simple. Why? Suppose you have to find out who are the neighbors of 2. All you have to do is retrieve the second row. Second row will tell you who are the neighbors of vertex 2. Third row will tell you who are the neighbors of vertex 3. Right? So it's very navigation friendly. The second advantage is it is space efficient. As you can see, 4 has no neighbors. 4 has no neighbors. So in other words, you don't have to waste any space here. It's very space efficient. The third advantage is you can store multiple edges. So between 1 and 4, if there are 2 edges with weight 10 and 12, between 1 and 4, 10 and 12. So you can make 2 entries. So to vertex 4 with weight 10, vertex 4 weight 12. Very easy to make these entries. Okay, so that is the advantage of adjacency list. There are disadvantages also. The first and the biggest disadvantage is answering a question like, is there a connection between 1 and 2? That becomes very complex. So check this out. Between 1 and 2, is there a connection? Yes, there is a connection. But suppose there are 100 connections here, 100 neighbors here. To find out if one is really connected to 4 or not, I have to look at all those 100 entries. So it becomes order of edges of vertex, each query, right? So that is the biggest disadvantage. Apart from that, there are no major disadvantages to this sort of representation. And because it's very navigation friendly, this is the default representation as far as this course is concerned. The third representation, this becomes useful in certain cases, it's the edge list. Here we completely ignore the vertex aspect. We just look at a graph as a collection of edges. How do you do that? we look at them as a collection of triplets in this case. So between vertex number 1 and vertex number 2 there is a connection, and the weightage of that connection is 4. Between vertex number 2 and vertex number 3 there is a connection, and the weightage of that connection is 3. Between 3 and 2 the weightage is 8. So we make an entry here. The advantage is it is very convenient to iterate over all edges. This is what we use in an algorithm known as the Bellman-Ford algorithm, which we'll be seeing later on in the video. It's very convenient to iterate. The second advantage is we can use custom sort methods to answer certain queries. For example, if we sort according to the second element, what do we get? We get the edge list as 1, 2, 4, 3, 2, 8 and 2, 3, 3. This allows us to answer questions like how many edges flow into 2? So the answer is 2. So we know that there is edge number 1 here and edge number 2 here. So such queries can be answered easily. Similarly, we can look at edges from heaviest to lightest. For example, if you were to do a heaviest to lightest sorting, 3, 2, 8, 1, 2, 4 and then 2, 3, 3. So that sort of a query can be understood and answered easily in an edge list. The disadvantage is that it has very limited applications. It's not very frequently used. Okay, so these are the representations. By default, we'll be using adjacency list. And in my convention, I represent adjacency list in this form: vector of integers, two-dimensional vector of integers. Why? So imagine that there are n nodes, 1, 2, 3, okay, 5 nodes. So 5 rows, and each of the row will contain a vector. Some vectors will be smaller, other vectors will be larger. So this whole data structure is called G, that is our graph, the adjacency list. So if you want to find out who are all the neighbors of 3, you just have to retrieve G of 3. So G of 3 will contain the entire list of all the neighbors of 3. G of 5 will contain all the neighbors of the vertex 5. Okay, for weighted, for this case, will not be just storing a vector of integers, will be storing a vector of pair of integers. Why pair? The first amongst the pair will be the destination vertex. The second amongst the pair would be the distance, the cost. I hope that makes sense. So this will be our default representation. If you are using any other representation, we'll be discussing it before we start. So I hope you like this video. If you like this video, subscribe to my channel, press the bell notification icon to get updates, and please hit the thumbs up button. Thank you very much. Have a great day.